Hello. So this is how to replace the edger belts, the edger shaft belts on a mobile dimension sawmill. This is the model 127, the older model. And we're gonna go ahead and get started. I've had this mill for probably almost 15 years. And recently I just started having this issue with these edger belts. So I'm really hoping that this goes well and that I can post this video, because I've done this, thousands of times over the decade plus we've owned this mill. So first thing you need to do, you're going to take this shroud off that covers the mill. So there's one bolt right here, take that out. And then there's a clamp right on the top of it. Whoops, it's really easy to loosen that. And there is a spring right here that holds this shroud up. Disconnect the springs, loosen this little guy right here, and that's ready to come off there. Okay. Looks like I should take my fuel tank off first. So if you're careful, I got mine set up so I can just set my fuel tank right there. You want to be really careful with these gas tanks, especially if the mill's hot. You really don't want to do anything. Okay. So you take your main shroud off. Next step we're going to do is go ahead and remove the blade. So there's a wrench that's supplied with your mill. I think if you don't have one of these, you probably need to get one. So you spin the blade until you can put a pin in here. This actually worked better than I thought. I don't think I've ever used that before, but just put a pin into this hole right here, and that keeps the mill from spinning, the blade from spinning. So we can get this nut off of here. I'm gonna try it once just with this. Yep. Loosen the nut, and then just note the orientation of the nut, spacer, and collars. So you put them back on in the right way. Nut, spacer, collar. Okay. The blade will come off. Be really careful. These carbide teeth are pretty much always razor sharp, Be careful. Blades are pretty cool to handle. Okay. So, next step is we're going to take off this plate thing. And this is always the part that just seems a tiny bit frustrating to me, because it just takes a while to get all this little stuff off. It seems like it could be a little easier. So take this plate off. There's just 3 bolts right here. Take them off. Yeah, I'd really like to get a new sawmill, and I think with the electric mobile dimension mill, it actually has a separate motor above the shaft. I need to check that out, but that would be so cool. Because these belts, edger belts, are just one of the things that a little bit of a pain on these mills. It takes a little bit of time. I've had it where I've put edger belts on and I've cut all summer long. I mean, like all summer and into the next year, and been like, God, I don't even remember the last time I replaced them. I've had other times where I've put new belts on, ran the mill down into my first log, slammed the edger belts in, or slammed the edger blades into a big knot, and had them just immediately burn out. So it's possible to get really good life out of these belts, and it's also possible for them to just not. So get this plate down. This would be kind of cool because I can time myself. Every time I do this, it seems like it takes forever. And I think the reality is, really, it's just not that big of a deal. But it's a decent little job. Okay. So now there is a little cable that we need to remove. So this cable right here is what pulls the board return up and down. When you're milling, that's up, and then when it's going back, that drops down and pushes the boards back. And every time that you take this off and replace the belt, you have to disconnect this little cable, which is just kind of a funny little detail. So get the Allen wrenches, and we'll pop that baby off. Remember the first time I went to take this little cable off, and I thought, gosh, that thing's probably going to be seized on there. Nope, came right off. So there's just a little, little set screw in that side. Looks like hopefully it's going to be 1/8 of an inch. That's what this says. Okay, yep. Okay. Okay, loosen that up. And there's a spring and a little sleeve that goes inside of the spring. So now we're going to pull that cable down. And we'll keep going with our project. Okay. So now, this cable, kind of want to watch where it goes. There. You can leave it in there, I guess. We can set that aside. Okay, wow, great. Yeah, look at these. The edger belts are looking great, huh? Holy cow. Sheesh. So now what needs to happen is you need to take the tension off the belts. We'll just go ahead and do the edger belts first, even though there's obviously not really any tension on them. So in order to do that, this bearing here needs to slide back to move the whole shaft back, and then the same thing down here. This bearing needs to slide back. So go ahead and back these off. So these screws are how you align the edger blades, which we will need to do here eventually. Back that off. Same thing up here. Those are 1/2 inch. Okay, so now we can loosen these bearing mount bolts on the top and the bottom. Let's see, they are 9/16, I think. Okay. Yep. Okay, let's go ahead and try this again here. Okay, sorry, I was missing my 9/16 wrench, so loosen these bearing bolts. There we go. And then this. That's free to move now. Oh, it's just, I see it. It's hitting this right here. So let's go ahead. So let's go ahead and take this off. So this is a roller that goes against the edger shaft pulley. And this is one of the things that I've always struggled just a little bit. So I'm going to do my very best today. Yeah. Okay. That's a 3/4 bolt there. So this roller has to come off. And what it does is it just runs against this pulley to keep the edger belts on there. I think this is one of the problems I've had, is just getting this thing adjusted correctly. I did replace it once. The bearings are still good. Feels really good. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead real quick, and down here we are going to loosen the lower edger shaft bearings. You just want to be really careful because everything is just sharp, sharp, sharp. And generally, if you're going to hurt yourself with a sawmill, it is going to be actually when you are trying to work on it or sharpen it, and you're going to cut yourself, you know? When it's running, you're pretty careful. Even though it's really dangerous, you're pretty careful. But when it's not running, that's when it'll get you. So be careful. These bolts you need to take all the way out, because the edger shaft is going to come, sorry, the edger belts are actually going to come down off the bottom of this. Right. Okay, so these bolts come all the way out. We're getting close now. So now this is free to move kind of out and forward so that we can get the edger belts up on there. So now we need to come around the other side of the mill. Here's the main drive belts. These are brand new. These ones are usually not too problematic. So we're gonna go ahead and we need to take the tension off of these. You tension these belts using this screw right here. This thing, just loosen it up. And what it actually does is it actually moves the entire engine forward or aft. So forward to tighten, back to loosen these belts. So what you gotta do is get that thing backed off a little bit. And then you gotta take and grab the mill like this. There I am. Grab the mill like this, kind of give it a, there we go, give it a pop until it frees it up and moves the mill back. And then now you can see those are really loose. And these are brand new. That's because I just put new belts on here. Something happened to the edger belts, so we'll see what's going on. Now we can go ahead and we can take off our main bearing bolts. You don't want to take these off until you're sure you've got no tension. Okay, we got no tension. So now we can take these 2 bolts out. We're gonna drop this down and move it forward, and we'll replace these belts. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. That's 3/4 as well. Jesus, got them on there. That's good. So, yeah, one of the other things you need to remember is that every bolt on the sawmill goes through a lot of vibration, and they really need to be tight. Like, you really want to use lock washers, and you really want everything to be very, very, very tight. I imagine you could, if you really, really wanted to do this, I think you'd probably want to use the torque wrench on every single thing. I have never used the torque wrench, but I'm telling you that you really want every bolt on the sawmill to be tight, like really, really tight. So we'll go ahead, take these bolts off. And these also hold on this shroud, so that will come off as well. Okay. Set the shroud aside. All right, so now we're ready to replace the belts. It takes a little while. You know, I usually figure this takes me like, I mean, it'll take me an hour by the time I'm done. I think you could really do it. You know, I think I could bust that thing apart in 10 minutes. And then I think I could put it back together in 10 minutes. I really do, but it's gonna take a little longer today. Moving a little slow. So you take your main shaft, you pull it down, you pull it forward. Okay, and that gets these all really loose. So then you can take them and you can work them down off of this roller onto the shaft right here. And then at that point, you can bring them off this way. And they barely fit. So it's like, you have to like get this thing like as far back as you can. They'll just barely come on off of there. You'll see when I put the new ones on. So let's get this mess out of here. Jesus. I didn't even see it happen this time. The mill was warming up and I stepped away, which I do all the time. I guess I probably shouldn't, but I mean, that's just what I do. I get it warm, start it up, let it warm up while I get the log on there. And this time, the edger belts died. Now we've got all the belts off the main shaft here, and now we need to work them down. Usually you have to do it kind of one at a time. You got to work them down all the way off the bottom there. So one of the things that you usually need to do is take this yoke off, and there's just a little bolt here on the back. So this yoke is what holds the top edger shaft, and usually you take that bolt out off the back and then it'll just tap down. In my case, I found that I can actually spin it out of the holder like that, and then I can just replace it, the belt, and then put it back in there. And so that's kind of cool. Normally I've always taken that off, but I've kind of figured that out. So. Oh, okay. Here we go. Like I said, look at all these carbide teeth. You got to be really, really careful. So these all need to go off the bottom. Just gonna go ahead and spin this thing back in to its holder. There we go. Make it a little easier. Alright, sun's coming out. So now, just one at a time, you work the belts down and out. And it's funny because there's just not that much room. Like when you're putting them in here, it is literally like one at a time. So get your belts down and get them out. Or what's left of your belts. Alright. So now's a good time to look at everything and be like, what happened? This bearing is good, I've replaced this. This looks good. It's not damaged. I think my problem must have been this freaking thing wasn't aligned right. So let's just go ahead and keep moving. So now it's installation of the belts. So you're going to get your belts and you're going to work them back onto the shaft. Put them right there. And we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you ever have just one belt go bad, like if you look in there and you're like, oh man, there's one, and you notice it, you can cut that belt out. And I've ran this thing for months on 5 or even 4. Once you get down to 3, you're probably close to the end. So you just get these on there. This. Onto the edger shaft. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and drop this blade for a second to get the belts inside the yoke I showed you earlier. Like that. Go ahead, put this back in. So now, before you put the belts on the pulley, you have to work them onto the shaft, the main shaft. So it's really funny because you can't do these one at a time. You have to put them all on, and then you got to put them all on. Like, you have to put them all on here, then you have to put them all onto there. And there's no options of not how to do it. So if you try to put them on one at a time, it doesn't work because this, you'll see that this one here is going to be the outermost one here. So if you put the first one on and tried to put it on, it just doesn't work out. It's really funny. So they are going to go on like this, okay? This is probably the weirdest thing about it, and it stresses me out every single time I do this. Every time I do this, it's like, gosh, is this right? But it is. It's only one way. So the edger belt's right here, okay? They go on like this. So you take them like this, okay? And then one at a time, you gotta work them on the shaft. And there's barely enough room right there for them to go on. So now you can see it's weird. It's like this one is gonna go on here first. It's really funny. So I like to just get them all in there and then go from there. They just barely fit. Good. And you can skip them over themselves, like once you get in here. So like if you got one like on in front of the other one, that's okay. But if you don't do them all at once, there's like no way to do it. Every time I'm like, I'll put them all one at a time. Nope, you can't do it. Okay. There, I almost got confused for a second. All right, we are looking good. I'll just show you that twist one more time. It's this. So yeah, needless to say, these belts run at a 90-degree twist, which is crazy. Crazy. Okay, we're looking really good here. So now these need to be worked up all the way. And like I said, there is just, you can kind of get this forward a little more. And that's about it. There's just enough room here. Okay. Looks good. Okay. So we'll go ahead and snap this back up and over, and I'll show you a close-up. So there they are. They don't have to twist over this roller. Check your roller every time, make sure the bearings are good. So everything about that is perfect. So I want to go ahead and we'll just reverse the procedure and we'll start tightening this stuff up. Okay, first thing will be putting your main bearing bolts back in. So you're gonna hold this shroud up in place, right there. And when you do this, you want to make sure that you don't change this screw right here, which is the main blade adjustment. Like if your main blade's good, don't change it. And then when you put this back on, you just want to make sure that the bearing is tight against the screw before you tighten it up, so that your alignment is still the same. Okay, so that mounts our gets our main shaft mounted back in place. Okay, so I check it. I'm really nice and tight. I got the shroud on there. If you forget the shroud, that sucks. So go ahead and tighten these. The same thing, really tight. I don't have a torque wrench, but I really like to tighten this stuff up. Same thing with the chainsaw. It's like even every time I get a chainsaw back from a saw shop, whatever part they worked on just falls off. It's like, I don't know, you know, I'm sure they're putting it on at like the, I don't know, maybe the torques they're supposed to or something, but like, if you ever want to really rebuild your chainsaw, you want to use like Loctite and tighten everything really, really well. Okay, so this is in place now. So now we can go ahead and insert our bolts back here. Into the edger shaft, and we're also going to go ahead and start tightening this up, which is going to tighten the belt. So when these move forward, it does two things. The top of the edger shaft, when it moves forward or back, it tightens the belts, and then this bottom one is how it's how you make the mill, how you align the bottom edger blade. So you get the top one where you want, and then you move this one forward or aft to get the edger blade aligned with your log. So let's get these on there. And while I was doing this, I noticed that I did not tighten the top edger bearings, which is crazy, but I don't know, people make mistakes, so I'm hoping that that's all that was wrong, that I actually did just make a mistake and my mill is totally fine. That would be great. Okay. So we're just gonna get these in there but still loose. So you don't want to tighten them yet until we've got it up all the way. So let's go ahead and tighten these babies up. Yep. So they're still loose that the bearing can still move, but they're tight enough to hold it in place. Now, I need to go ahead and I'll advance this back to where I had it before. And that, if you leave those at the same spot, you can usually get it pretty close, but we'll go through the alignment of the edger blade as well here. Short. Yeah, it's just a lot of little pieces, you know. It takes some time, so. There. I'll show you how to do the edger blade alignment now. So first thing you do is you come all the way across the log making like 2-inch cuts to get to the end. And you kind of look at it and you can see here that I've mainly got the front of the blade. Now I'm not seeing any swipes going this way, which would be from the back of the blade all the way down. So that means we probably got it leaned forward just a little bit. So this is a really, really easy process, and first few years I did it, they make it way too complicated. Make those cuts all the way across the top of the log. Slide your mill back out there. Okay. And all you got to do is look at, I like to use a little piece of credit card, and you just see the space between the tooth and the wood. On the front, mine is just, it's about a 1/16 of an inch up. And then when I come back here, oh man, oh, that's perfect. Wow, yeah, so it's a 16, it's perfect. Tiny bit of toe. So basically, you just want it running flat. If it's flat, it's good. They say to make it lean the front of the blade down a tiny bit. I don't think it's really necessary. I just try to put it so it's, you know, just flat with the front down a tiny bit, if anything. So that's good. We don't even need to realign it. That's perfect. If the front was like touching the wood and the back was way up, we'd move the blade forward to flatten it out, and that's it. So let's go ahead, keep going, cutting this beautiful Sitka spruce log here. Awesome. Whew, the mill's cutting great. I'm super pleased. Edger belts look great. Everything's just going swell. Okay. Go ahead and cut in and make our first 3x6. We got one cut that'll be bark, second cut will be a 3x6. Oh man, it's so beautiful. Wow. God dang, just absolutely gorgeous. Wow. Beautiful. are just beautiful 16-foot 3x6s. Those 3 make 1A of the A cabin. I've got 7 A's in this cabin. I probably cut 8. So 24 pieces total.